Good morning, this is your math sensei, Mr. Spensei, and these are our notes on point slope form. So first thing, step one says write the point slope formula, but I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to either, but I need to in order to do this. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, I did that. Find the slope and substitute for m. Oh, they told me my slope is 5/3, so I can plug in 5/3 right below that. All right, choose a point for x1 and y1. Well, we only have one point, and so this will be x1 and this will be y1, and we'll plug that in. So that will be y minus 5, and this will be parenthesis x minus 3. Okay, we did the first part. We actually have this in the correct form. Now, in order to graph the point, I need to go to this point, 3, 5, because 3, 5 will be my starting point. So it's really important to understand that this is my starting point right there. So we're going to go to positive 3, positive 5, and mark it. All right. Now it says our slope is 5/3. Well, unfortunately, if I go up 5, I don't have room. And the reason I know that is because I got to consider the angry man eyebrows. Angry Man Eyebrow says we're going up and to the right, so I don't have room for that. So I'm going to have to go make sure that I'm following an angle that looks something like, I'll mark it in pencil. It needs to go something like this. So if I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1, 2, 3. Because I went 3 in the x, 5 in the y. 3 in the x, 5 in the y. Connect those points and we have our line. Now, it also says here, we can do this in Desmos too. We can move y to the other side. Well, if I move that minus 5 to the other side, it becomes a plus 5. So instead of having y minus 5 equals 5/3 x minus 3, I could add 5 to both sides. This goes away, and now I have y equals 5/3 x minus 3 plus 5. Now that really looks ugly, and it can be simplified a lot farther than that, but that's actually good enough right there to graph it in Desmos, so let's do that. I'm going to share that screen. Try to. There we go. Get rid of all the stuff that we already have, all of our other work. I'm going to type in y equals 5/3 parentheses, parentheses, x minus 3, close those parentheses, and then we're going to put a plus 5. And sure enough, we get exactly the same graph as we had before. So basically, once you have it, if you move the point over, you can graph it in Desmos. It won't graph it unless you move that 5. All right, the next one. Write the point slope form of the equation that passes through -2, 5. Well, once again, I need to write my formula, even though I don't want to, so I can plug in y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Well, this is x1, this is y1, and my slope is -4. So y minus 5 equals -4 times x minus a minus 2. Really, that should say x plus 2, but we have x minus a minus 2, so this actually becomes a plus. So I'm going to change those signs because a negative and a negative becomes a positive. So it's x plus 2. So at that point, I know my starting point is -2 and then positive 5. So there's my starting point, and we always, always, always start with our starting point. So that's it. And then we're going to count out our slope. Well, my slope happens not to be a fraction this time. So it's m equals -4 over 1, because remember, it's always y over x. We got to consider the angry man eyebrows. So I need the one that's sloping down. So when I'm done with this, I should have something that looks kind of like that. So that means down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Down 1, 2, 3, 4 and over 1. And 1, 2, 3, 4 and over 1. At this point, I can connect the dots. And there's our line. Now, once again, to do this in Desmos, we have this equation that we just did, and our equation is y minus 5 equals -4 parentheses x plus 2. To put it in Desmos, I have to move this 5 to the other side. Well, it's a -5, so I need to make it a +5. So this goes away, and I have y equals -4 parentheses x plus 2 plus 5. So let's switch over to Desmos and see if we get a graph that looks about like the one we just worked with. So we have y equals -4 parentheses x plus 2 plus 5. And sure enough, we get a graph that looks pretty much like what the one we drew. So it looks like we probably did it right. And you know what? I'm not sharing that here. There we go. So there, I typed in y equals -4 parentheses x plus 2 plus 5, and I got a graph that looks a lot like the one we just drew on our own paper. All right, we're going to stop the share and continue on to the next page. Okay, in this case, they've given us the equation, and we need to identify the starting point in M and graph it. So my equation is y minus y1 equals M times x minus x1. Oh, well, that means my slope is 3/8. So that's easy. And remember, it's always y over x. And I go, oh, there's x1 and there's y1 right here. So in this case, watch out for the signs. All right, watch out for the signs. So this is -8. Let me pause this for just a moment. All right, so my starting point is x is 1 and y is 8. Now be really careful with this because right now these are labeled as -1 and -8. But in point slope form, they actually lie. All right. And whatever the signs are, you have to switch them. So always make a note, be sure to change the signs. And that's what it says right here. Make sure to switch those signs. So we have +1 and +8. So we're gonna plot that because that's my starting point, +1 and +8. My slope is 3/8, which means I need to consider the angry man. It's a positive slope. So I need to be going up. Well, I can't go up because I'll be off the graph, but I need it to look with some sort of angle that looks something like this. So in this case, I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and connect those dots and we're good to go. Now, as it turns out, I can still go back to Desmos, and I probably should, and graph that. So to check it out, we have y minus 8 equals 3/8 x minus 1. Well, if I add 8 to both sides, this goes away. Now I have y equals 3/8 x minus 1 plus 8. So let's switch over. And I already typed it in, y equals 3/8 x minus 1 plus 8. Hopefully we're looking at it. So y equals 3/8 parentheses x minus 1 plus 8. And there we go. And there's our graph. And if I go to 1, 8, right about there, and I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. There's our starting point. So that's the starting point that we have. And that graph looks kind of like what we have. We're a little bit below 8, and we're up pretty high on the graph. All right, hope that helps. Let's move on to the next one. So in this one, we have to identify our slope. We'll start with that is m equals -4, and we'll turn it into a fraction. So -4/1, because remember, it's always the y's over the x's. All right, don't forget, in this case, we have a negative slope, so we need a downward facing. We need to identify our x and y, and we've written our formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, so remember switch the signs. So this +1 becomes a -1, and this -7 becomes a +7. So that means we now have our starting point because we switched our signs, our x and our y, and I should circle it like this because they line up. So -1, +7, there's my starting point. All right, we need a negative slope, which means we need to be going down this way. So I need to go down. So if I go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, and down 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, and we're kind of out of room, so we'll stop about there. All right. So this is what we think our graph's going to look like, and then we'll check it out on Desmos. So with Desmos, we have y minus 7 equals -4 parentheses x plus 1. I need to move this 7 over to the other side so I can plug it in Desmos. To do that, I'm going to add 7. And now I have y equals -4 parentheses x plus 1 plus 7. So let's switch our share. All right, plug that in. Right here we have a -4, x plus 1, and then we have a plus 7. And we see that we're crossing the graph at about 3. We can see our starting point at -1, 7 is about here. All right, so that looks like we've done that pretty good. All right, so we'll stop that and move on to the next one. All right, so here we have 2 points and we need to graph them on the coordinate plane. Well, first off, what I would highly recommend doing is going, well, this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and we're going to need to write our slope formula. ME is y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2 equals, and parenthesis, minus parenthesis, parenthesis, minus parenthesis. So this is going to be -4 over 3, and this will be -2 over 2. At this point, I'm going to go to Desmos to get my slope. And I should say this, I'm also going to use these 2 points, the first two. Doesn't matter which two I choose, but I'm just going to use those first two as my starting points. So 3, -4 are my starting points. So I'm going to go to +3, -4, because I can go ahead and graph that. We already know that that's my starting point. So I just went ahead and graphed it. All right, so I'm going to drop into Desmos to get my slope. All right, to get the slope, we need to go parenthesis minus parenthesis parenthesis minus parenthesis. Again. All right, so we have our slope now, and we're going to go ahead and plug in our values. We had -4, and then right here we had a -2. Then we had a 3, and then we have a -2. So we end up with -2 divided by 1, and we end up with a slope of -2. All right, now that we have our slope, we're going to drop back. So m equals -2 over 1, or just plain old -2. And I'm just going to write -2 here. We're going to write our formula. Our y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Well, we know that this is +3, and this is -2. The slope we can plug in exactly, but we have to be careful with the y's. We have to swap our signs. Whatever our signs are, we have to swap them. So this is a -4, so we have to make it a +4. And this +3 becomes a -3. So our equation is y plus 4 equals -2 parentheses x minus 3. So if I go about graphing that, I have a slope of -2, so I'm going to count up to and over 1. And by the way, it's a negative slope. So angry man eyebrows, we need this one. So we need a slope that's going to look like this. So if I go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, if I continue the pattern in the other direction, it's going to look something like this. And all I did was go down 1, 2 over 1, down 1, 2 over 1. All right, and I just did it a bunch of times. So now we have our slope, and it looks like it is going down the way the angry man eyebrows are. So there's the angry man eyebrows, and that one takes care of that. Now, I could go to Desmos. If I move that 4 to the other side, I could move the 4 to the other side, and I'd have y equals -2 x minus 3 plus 4, and it should graph it for me. All right, or I can graph it from the table. So let's do both of those things. We'll start off by graphing it from the table. All right, so graphing it from the table. Plus table, and we have 3, -4, and then we have 2, -2. Press that button, and there it is. All right, so we have our line, and that line looks pretty much like ours because ours goes through that. We had a starting point of 3, -4. So hopefully we have a starting point of 3, -4, and sure enough, we do. Okay, so it should look pretty much like that, so you should be able to check it out that way. All right, stop. Oh, so the next thing we need to do is we need to go, what happens? So that's with the table. What happens if we graph it the other way? Y equals -2 parentheses x minus 3 plus 4. -2 parentheses x minus 3. Oh, not plus 4, -4. Excuse me. That should be a -4. I wrote that down wrong on my paper. I need to go back and fix that. And we end up getting exactly the same line. So let me go back and fix that on my paper. When I moved this +4 across, it should have become a -4. So that was a mistake. This should have said -4. All right. Okay, very last thing for the notes. Given 2 points, write the equation in point slope form and graph on the coordinate plane. Well, first off, we need to identify our x1, y1. Well, we now have that, so that's our starting point. So we have, but this won't fit on the plane, so I can't use that as a starting point because 14 is off the plane. So I'm going to have to use this one. I'm going to have to use 7, comma 3 as my starting point. So positive 7, positive 3 is my starting point, and it's right there. So we now have our starting point. We're having to use this one as our starting point. The next thing we need to do is we need to calculate our slope. Well, m equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. And to be consistent, although a little bit tricky, we're going to use 7, 3. So remember, it's always the y's over the x's. So this is 3 and this is 7. This will be -2 and this will be 14. Let's slip into Desmos and have that do the calculation for us. And get rid of this and that and do parenthesis minus parenthesis and parenthesis minus parenthesis. This is 3. This is -2. This is 7. And this is 14. And we get 5 slash -7. That becomes an ugly decimal. We press this button to the right, left, and it's -5/7. So our slope is -5 over 7. Switching back. So we have -5/7 is our slope. So we can go ahead and count that out. Now, please remember, we're working with the Angry Man eyebrows. Angry Man eyebrows says this is going down as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Connect those 2 points because I went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Connect those points. All right, so that's our slope. We still need to write our equation. The equation was write our formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Technically, it doesn't matter which one we use, but we use 7, 3, so I'm going to continue to be consistent. So y minus, this is a positive 3, and remember this is y and this is x, so y1, x1, so y minus 3 equals -5/7 x minus 7. Now these are both positives. Notice the sign switch. Don't forget, for point slope, you have to switch the signs. All right, so we can write that down. That's our final equation. I'm going to write it in red because that's what we graphed it in. So we have y minus 3 equals -5/7 x minus 7. All right, appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.